So I've got the bike up on the bench. It's just lying up on its side on a table saw with a pad underneath it. And I'm on the front wheel first. And this is just, I think, a 5mm Allen key. So I'll put that in there. I'm able to do this with my left hand while videoing it. It comes off and then you can see there's a bearing in there. So to get the wheel off, you should just be able to. So it really does just snap off like that, and the bearings are in the wheel. So this one's got a big one on one side and a small one on the other. It should be quite easy to drift these out. I suspect the spaces where they sit are just machined in, so I'm going to just try and drift it out up on a few pieces of wood. So this is the brake side here, and this is a 6902 RS, so it's just rubber shielded, and I can feel actually that that's the one that was clicking, if you remember when I was riding it on the road. And then this side here is a 6001 RS. It feels a bit rough as well actually. So what I'm going to do is on the side with the bigger hole, which is the 6902, I'm going to put some packers underneath. Not that it'll really be necessary, but I'll put them down to make a start on it. And I need a shaft that will go through here and we'll ride up on the inner race on this one, and hopefully it'll drift out. So I've just got a mild steel bar and a big hammer. I'm just going to gently try and tap that out. And I can feel it moving. Yeah, it's near the edge, so I'll settle these so that they're a bearings distance apart, which is about there. And then try and set this down. It's actually resting more on the spokes than anything else. But if it's moving like that, then it'll be okay, I reckon. That's that one out. Just pops out like that. I turn this over. Do likewise. It doesn't matter this time that it's not big enough. It doesn't go the whole way around because I'm just driving out the old bearing. So a bit on one side and then a bit on the other. And it is moving, but it's gone completely wonky in there, so I better correct that. There. That's it, out. So you do a lot of damage to bearings driving them out like that, but they're damaged anyway, so it doesn't matter. So here's the old one. And what am I doing? I'm just rolling it in my hand, trying to feel if it clicks or anything like that. And when I'm spinning it around and putting a bit of pressure on it, I can feel, imagine like the tiniest grain of sand in there or something. Now granted, once I've hit it a few times sideways on with the hammer, but this one here, I can really feel that center is loose. So that's the bearings there. Let's clean out the place where they sit, the seats, with a cloth. Probably wasn't great to get that one so far off at an angle, but well, I didn't burst it, so it'll be okay. Now, can I remember which way was which? Of course I can't. So the brake side was the one with the bigger hole. So put a little drip of oil on the outside to help it in. Just the tiniest bit. It's just a smear, just to give it, because it is quite a tight fit. It's a press fit in that hole there. Let's put a bit of oil in there. It seats in quite well. And then I could use the old bearing actually. be safer to use something a little bit smaller. If I look from the other side, I think that's actually seated up quite well. It's gone in fine. On the other side, a drop of oil. Just a little wipe there. And likewise, I'll give it a tap because it seems to go in loose about that far. Well, says I. There it is driving in there. What I'm doing is I'm checking each time with the old bearing that it's not that the bearing isn't getting stuck, because to try and get that out would be a bit of trouble. How far is that in there? So I've got a little tool with a hook on the end of it. I'm just going to reach in and see. There's a bit of space there. If I drive it on a tiny bit more. Okay. Let's see how we're going. Let's offer it up and see if it fits. So before I put it back, I'll give the brake shoes a clean because they get dusty, and I don't think that dust is very helpful when it comes to braking. I put that screw back on there to keep it safe. I'll just give this brake drum here a bit of a clean out with a clean rag. Make sure you don't get any oil in there or anything like that. Let's see if it fits. I put a smear of oil on there because I was working on this a while ago, so I'm not too worried about it sliding on okay. It's a little bit high, so I'm going to tap those bearings in a little bit more. If I can get it off. Go. So to press it back in, I've got a socket here, and this one, it's a 24mm, but that's in there. I just want something that's a bit smaller than the bearing size, but not so small that it hits the inside there, so this should do it. Hit it a few belts with the hammer. Okay, try it again. And then I've offered it back on the hub, and you can see the center here, the axle, is almost flush with the bearing there, so it might have a little tiny bit more to go. I think they were just about equal. So then to finish it up, I've got it so that the axle is almost flush with the bearings, and I think that's how it was. Put the little retaining screw back in. And of course, like before, this wasn't very tight. So just bring it up. I wouldn't rely on this to tighten the bearings if they were on the shaft there, if they weren't on properly. That'll do me. So that brake's binding a little bit there, is it? Or is it the mudguard? That's it. It's the front wheel done. The rear wheel on this one is more or less the same. It's the same little screw with a washer. 5mm Allen key. This time it's got, I think, an aluminium washer there. If we look inside, it's got a hexagonal shaft, hexagonal axle, and I guess that's because it's a driven wheel, or yeah, the wheel is driven. Okay, so if that's not working, what I would do is take the screw it in almost to the end, and with a soft hammer, hit it a little blow. So what I'm going to do is rise the wheel up on my chest a bit so that the bike has somewhere to go behind. And then that's it, I can see it moving off there. So I'll screw this a little bit more. And give it a few more taps. Again, rising it up on my chest. That's it. It might fall off now. It's way down. It's moved about 5 or 6 mil there. It doesn't want to come out. Very strange. Put the screw back in with no washer because otherwise the washer's interfering. I want to use a bit of thread on it. Get another 3 or 4 mil this way. How's that looking? That's it, we're off now. So this one, this one's going to be more interesting. Yeah, I forgot about that. This one's different then. So this one, the axle, because it's a driven axle by the chain, we have to take off the chain wheel. We don't have to take it off, we have to remove it. And to do that, we have to remove the derailleur and all its accessories. So we've got to get it underneath. So I'm going to try and do this without making my life too difficult. The derailleur's held on from underneath with 2 Allen screws. The derailleur's held on from underneath with 2 Allen screws on this special bracket. I'm going to do is just try and release the bracket and see if that'll get me enough space to work. So there's the tension on the derailleur coming around. Still do need to take it all the way off. And that's it sliding out with the axle. There we go. Oh, the bike's going off. So then with the axle removed, this is exactly the same as the hub on the other side really. Except that the bearings are separated by a piece of sleeving inside that you can move around. I'll try and pull it over again. And that's useful because you can see that piece of pipe in the middle there. We need to do the same drifting, but this time we'll have to move that pipe around as we drift out one bearing. Then the pipe will fall out and we have to drift out the other bearing from the other side. So just watch and you might see what I mean. So I'm putting this same shaft that I used before in. And you see, because of that piece of pipe there that can move around, I can get this in at any angle there. So I'm gonna just cup it in my hand. The bike's kind of balancing there, so it's in equilibrium. So most of the shock is going to be taken by my hand. And then move it to the other side. I think that's just coming straight out there, yeah. So if I hold it underneath with my hand, it's come out quite easily. And there's one bearing, and that looks pretty grim actually. I'm glad I'm doing this job. So then when I let this go, this pipe will come out, and it's a little bit of, it's just an aluminium spacer there. That's come out, we'll give that a clean up too. And then on the other way, I can do this from, if I turn the bike over, I could do it from above, but I'll just, feels okay, that bearing, but you can see, let's get in closer. So we're in a bit closer there with a bit of perspective. That's it, it just flipped out just like that. So that's the old bearing. Let's get a rag and give it a clean and see what it looks like. It's just dirt, I think, on this one. It's not too bad, really. This is a 16,002 RS. that one feels okay. On this side, both bearings are the same. That might just be snots on the outside there. It looks rusty. The bearing itself feels okay, so what I'm doing is trying to rotate it on itself. So that bearing feels okay there. It's cleaned up a bit, and it's the same one, 16,002 RS. It was the front I wanted to do, but when I'm in here I'm doing both. So I'll give the old seats, the bearing seats, a clean. With the rag from above and below. You've got to remember, whenever you're doing jobs on a bike like this, taking bearings on and off, and the same going for cars at a much greater scale, if you've got 100 kilos of rider and 100 kilos of load and 10 or 20 kilos of bike, roughly speaking, when the bike's maxed out, that's a lot of load. I wonder if that bearing's dirty from moisture getting into the inside of the frame and having no drain out point at the back. If you look at that shaft there, this will be one of the lower points, either here or further up there at the bend. I wonder if there's moisture getting stuck in that pipe that can't get out. I wonder if it needs a little hole drilling here. And you see, a hole won't make any difference to the bike, because there won't be any rust on it or anything, because it's aluminium. Okay, I'll give that a bit of a clean off there as well. Using the clean part of my rag. Then I'll give this pipe a clean as well, this spacer. I think the hardest part of this job is going to be getting the derailleur back on. I've taken a chance taking it off in one piece. Just bunching that up there, pushing it through, and twisting it as I go. It's pretty clean. And the other thing, I've done the gears on this bike recently, the whole gear set. Give that a clean off. We'll put oil on it before we put it back in. So bearing number 1, a dab of oil on that. I wonder if I can tap this up from above, from below even. Just seat it that way. Let's give it a bit of a smear there underneath with my finger. That's it in, actually. That's it done. Now put the shaft in, don't forget that. And then another bit of oil. Don't know if this oil is really necessary if they're this loose, but okay. I think that's it, really. That was quite easy. I want to wipe off the excess there because we're into brake land. I don't want oil going in around the brakes. Wipe it off with my greasy cloth. And this shaft, bit of oil on that. And before I forget, there was this washer here up on this end as a packer. Don't know what for. So then, let's put this back in first, now that my hands are pure filthy. It's getting stuck on that shaft inside, so I'll just give it a wiggle and ease it in with my... Whoa, I've drifted out the bearing there. It's not ideal. It's rather a tight fit there, hey? That back on. Okay. Now this would be better on the horizontal, obviously, but we're not on the horizontal, so... Looking good. If you've seen that, I've got the derailleur lined up as if by magic, the way it came off. Just get one screw in before I adjust the camera. Okay. I'm thinking everything's in order there, and we'll put in the other screw. At this point, there's nothing holding that derailleur in place. Oh, I've lost my screw. At this point, there's nothing holding that derailleur in place. Not the derailleur, the chain wheel. It's not a chain wheel. The rear cluster is what I might call it. And the shaft is falling down a little bit. So push that up with my right hand. Get both hands in on this Allen key. Given how easy it is to do this job, I would say you're better off doing it with the bike upright in its usual position. Just get down on your knees, or else put the bike up on something but in its regular position, the position in which you would ride it. Tighten these up again. The shaft is up there, so let's put the wheel on. I'll take out the screw this time before I do it. And all I've got to do is offer it up before I put it back on with a clean rag. I'll do this again. I can see there's a bit of what looks like oil residue or something coming out there. I won't put anything on the shaft from this end, and I'll actually dry off the shaft because I don't want any oil getting on the brakes. There we are. I've got about, don't know if we can see that in there. Let's get right in and close. You've got about 4 mil to go. So I'm just doing it with my hand, lifting the bike up a little bit, and then that's stopping. It's running out of steam there, so what I'll do is I'll put a little block of wood on it, give it a little tap. One more. Yeah, that looks, no, a little more, 1 more millimeter. And that looks to be where it was before. Washer in. And final Allen key, or the final Allen screw. Wheel feels nice and free, much freer on this end. Tighten that up. So that's it. That's how to do the bearings front and back on this Mike Burrows 8Freight cargo bike. Any questions or any comments, leave them below. Anything that I could have done easier, tell me about it, because I'm just making this up as I go along. Thanks for watching. See you later.